February 17th, February 18th, live trading, San Diego. We got the Lowe's Coronado. I mean, what else would you want? This event is limited to 50 people. Look at your calendar, clear it, make sure you show up. If you want to be a rebel, this is the place to be. You got to sign up for it now. Giddy up, baby.
And here we go. I got to tell you something. Is there anything more fun for me than to do the Rebel's Edge with another brother from another mother? That's Mark Lepresti right there. It's good to see you, Mark. How you doing?
Always a pleasure, my friend. A happy New Year to you and to the great Rebel Nation. Good to be back.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's always fun. That crazy brother of mine, you know, the guy can never stay anywhere for any period of time. He's either in Puerto Rico, he could be in Chicago, he could be in New York. But where he actually is today, Switzerland. The guy's probably on the slopes right now, skiing down with a drink in his hand, Mark. I mean, you know, what a life.
I can't confirm or deny those rumors, Pete, although at certain times of day, I think the probability of that is high. But John is keynoting at the CFC Crypto Finance Conference in San Moritz, now in its seventh year. It is a pretty significant gathering of crypto, blockchain, and Web3 luminaries. CZ from Binance is allegedly going to sit down with Dr. J. So he's out there doing God's work to bring insights to the Rebel Nation in crypto and blockchain, and skiing and drinking.
And while he's doing that, he's skiing, he's drinking, he's having a great time. He's right. I mean, you know, I can't even pronounce the place he is. What'd you say, Biarritz or
San Moritz?
San Moritz, yeah. He's somewhere over there in Europe. How about that? Doing God's work, as you said. I mean, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to sacrifice. It might as well be John Najarian.
True. Can't argue that.
All right. Well, let's just jump into it, Mark, and let's hit it right out of the gate. Let's go with the macro minute. So, with the macro minute today, we've got a global recession. At least that's what we were told by the World Bank. There's a lot going on. Quite frankly, Mark, I think that we've been in a recession. We've come out of a recession. It was very light. And I think probably, are we going back into one? Maybe, probably, seems like. But it looks like to me that the markets right now are trying to figure this thing out. And we'll know a heck of a lot more when we get the CPI on Thursday. What do you say?
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with you at all. I get really frustrated when I hear this constant talk about, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? We're rewriting the rules, it seems to me, Pete, for political purposes, which drives me completely insane. And for the central bank, for the World Bank, to say, hey, we think things look bad in terms of GDP for Europe this year. No kidding. Europe went first. So, but look, it shows how skittish the market is, right? So what happened today with the World Bank is they essentially cut back their GDP outlook and essentially said it's not going to increase by 3% in 2023. It's going to increase by only 1.7, so almost half, which is not a good thing, and the market's reacting accordingly.
Yeah. Well, you brought it up. You talked about what John's up to while he's over there in San Moritz or Moritz, some sort of a Fitz or whatever it is. We're going to jump right into it, Mark. And here we go with our beginning with Coinbase. How about that one? Now, let's just think about this for a second. The stock has had a really nice pop. It's moving to the upside. It's having a pretty decent day because of the fact that they're cutting back on employment. Now, that's pretty interesting. That seems to be the reaction that everybody gets. Hey, they're going to cut 10 or 20%. We're going to start buying the stock again. And that's what we're seeing out of Coinbase. They're doing it because of the fact that they have some real financial issues that are going on right now. They lost $500 million in 2022. That's a real number. When you look about the operating cash flow, it's down about $2 billion. There's a lot of different problems Coinbase faces right now. It's a nice move that we're seeing today off of near the lows. I mean, when you look at the 52-week mark, we're talking $31 to $264. And here we are today. Wow, we're scratching at $40 and everybody's excited about it. What do you think about what's going on with Coinbase today?
Well, that's one reason why you can't just look at the technicals, although we certainly love technical analysis, and some of the best are at Market Rebellion. But this is a multi-layered topic here, Pete, with what's going on in Coinbase, right? So they overhired like so much of tech during the Great Resignation, and when everybody thought we better bulk up on high-paying tech jobs because we can't get them, they went too far. They got ahead of their skis. The CEO admitted as much. Paring back now, that bad news is good news thing. We're firing all these people. That doesn't sound like good news. Well, it is. It's good news for the Fed to see continued tightening in the labor market, something they want to see as an indicator of how hard to keep that foot on the interest rate gas pedal. But the one thing you didn't mention that's also factoring into some bullishness in the name is the following. They are the most regulated and the most recognized from a regulatory perspective crypto exchange out there, certainly from the perspective of the U.S. regulators. And it has been anticipated, and I tend to agree with this, that they will benefit. We haven't seen a huge quick pop, but they will benefit over time from the failure of FTX and possibly other regulatory crackdown on less regulated or unregulated exchanges.
Yep, all true, and I totally agree with you, Mark. Next, we're going to go to Oak Street Health. Now, why is that stock having the day that it's having? It jumped as much as 30% today. Why? Well, there's a $10 billion takeover that's going on with CVS. Matter of fact, CVS, the CEO yesterday at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, we talked about this coming into this conference. Every year, there's always news, there's always breaking news about something in the world of health. This is definitely one of those. Yesterday, that CEO, she was talking about strong revenue. She was talking about the earnings forecast. She went into a long bit about how strong things are looking for 2023 after a bit of difficulty in 2022. Well, this one's going to be pretty interesting. They think this can fuel a little bit of fire for the company. Will they be able to do that? I don't know if that's necessarily, I've got that answer, but certainly this is a very, very big move and affecting Oak Street Health today in a big way.
Yeah, no doubt. And JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, to your point, never failing to deliver big news coming from the podiums there. Look, Pete, this announcement follows an absolute flurry of activity and deal making in healthcare, specifically in this kind, right? And this is a part of the story of the rotation away from pandemic-driven telehealth, where names like Teladoc were darlings of the pandemic, to companies in the healthcare space looking back at boots on the ground, brick and mortar, and retailers in general pharmacy items and healthcare items like CVS losing ground to online retailers like Amazon. So looking to increase their footprint in retail healthcare by deals like this. We saw Amazon buy One Medical last year for almost $4 billion, one of the biggest deals in the space. VillageMD getting bought by Walgreens for almost $9 billion last year. Again, another execution of that strategy. And CVS, a name we're mentioning in this story, entered into an agreement to buy a home healthcare company, Signify Health, for almost $8 billion. I expect to see further deal activity in this space as these companies execute on the strategies we just described.
Well, and on that same note, here's one that's actually breaking apart, and that's Frontline. Now, this is a name, Mark, where they had an agreement with Euronav, and now they don't. And they decided that they were going to break away. They just couldn't get it all figured out. There's a lot of different reasons behind all of this. So they're no longer going to be pursuing this acquisition. That gave Frontline a nice boost to the upside. And let's not forget, there is a fairly decent amount of short interest in this name. So that short squeeze is into effect as well. We talk about this all the time. Here it is playing out right in front of us as we speak. They've got a short of about 12 to 17%, depending on where you want to look. But that can be a squeeze factor. And I think that's what's playing in with the oil tankers right now. Oh, by the way, they traded over 21 million shares in the first hour and a half or so, Mark. Normally 4 million shares exchanging. So a lot of people starting to move around a little bit after the termination of this deal.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, Frontline controlled a majority, significantly controlled by one of Europe's wealthiest billionaires, John Fredrickson. So I think this was very much a decision on Fredrickson's part as it relates to whether or not there was just any sense in a combination of this kind, which would, Pete, if consummated, have created the world's largest publicly traded tanker company. Frontline and Euronav both being in the oil tanker business. So Is this also an indication of the respective companies' outlook, bullish outlook for energy and oil transportation and demand? I think so. Companies tend to consolidate when there's problem and pressure, but when they think that it's going to be wine and roses, they don't need to consolidate. They don't need to share the pie. So I think we see Frontline expanding, currently fourth, soon to be third largest oil tanker concern in the world. They just don't need Euronav anymore. So it's not me, it's you, is really what Fredrickson, but not you, it's me, what Fredrickson was saying to the Euronav shareholders on this one.
Yep, I agree with you. Next up, we've got CureVac. Now, this one's pretty interesting, Mark. You look at this stock a year ago, it was trading for 24 bucks. Then you look at the end of 2022, it's trading for $6. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing a little bit of a combination of things going on, a squeeze, but also some news about what they're doing with the flu vaccines, with COVID flu vaccines, and that being a positive. Now, here's the thing I always like to warn people. This is phase one, number one. That's number one. Number two, and by the way, you got to go through phase one, phase two, phase three, and then you've got to go again to get the approval to be able to go out there into the world and sell it. That's a long ways from Tipperillo right now, Mark. And we are, so that's something that I think it has to be thought of. By the way, they are burning cash like you can't believe. So there's a lot of different factors playing in right now, but also, again, a little bit of a squeeze moving to the upside as well. So what do you think about this one? I think it's a little early. I don't know, Mark. And by the way, with all the COVID stuff, I just wonder, is that still something? And by the time they get it to phase three and then get it to the rest of us, are we still going to even be talking about COVID? Maybe we are, because I look at China right now and China's got some issues.
Well, China's definitely got some issues, of course, reopening its borders very dramatically this week, which is sort of the main thing I've been watching to see what that impact is going to be, although that's going to play out over time. Look, not to suggest that the good people at CureVac may not be onto something, not to suggest they may not save lives, God bless them. I don't like investing in clinical stage stuff. There's so much that happens between phase one and phase three. There is a valley of death, as a lot of biotech investors call it, between phase two and phase three. And look, you can put a different name on this story, Pete, again, not to denigrate the company or what they're doing, but so many companies that are clinical stage biotech companies like this, burning cash, it takes years to get to where they need to be to get to the promised land, or Tipperary, as you put it. And so I'm not a buyer. I'm not taking the bait on this one.
Well, I'm with you on that too, by the way. All right. So next we're going to jump into some of that unusual option activity that we talk about all the time. Last week we had all kinds of different names that absolutely have exploded to the upside, Mark. We had Netflix. That one panned out before expiration. We also had Warner Brothers Discovery. That one today absolutely exploding to the upside. We had that last Wednesday. So unusual has really been very, very interesting and accurate of late. I don't know what we're going to have to say about this one. American Airlines. So what are they doing? They're buying puts, and they're buying puts for this week. Is this sort of a hedge? It sure could be. When you look at the chart and you see the movement that we've seen out of some of these kind of names, maybe this is a hedge. I don't think that they're playing for the downside in this one, Mark, but 28,000 of the American Airlines this week, 14 puts are being bought today, 11 cents to 15 cents. By the way, 14,000 of those traded in one print for 15 cents. So if that is a hedge, like I'm kind of guessing it is, this gives a great inexpensive sort of an opportunity if somebody's long or looking at the airlines right now. And we've seen a lot of paper and a lot of different names. This was the biggest, though. It feels to me like more of a hedge right now. So that's the way I'm viewing it. I am not in this trade because I don't have any positions in the airlines right now at all. But it's a very interesting to see what's going on with the airlines. Clearly, with the price of crude and everything else that's playing into this whole thing. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. And I'm taken by the incredibly bullish sentiment from Delta CEO Ed Bastian just the other day, absolutely blowing the doors off any expectation I had for Delta or for the airline industry in general, anticipating a return to profitability this year. So, yeah, I think you're seeing bullishness in the stronger names in the airlines. I've got some bullish activity in Lucid Motors, the famous EV company. We had 7,900 of the Jan 750 calls bought for between 15 and 23 cents above. Stock just before we went on, trading around $6.85. Pete, this company has just gotten the you-know-what kicked out of it during 2022. 52-week high, 47.5, near its 52-week low currently at $6.10. Looking into what might be behind this, there's been some improvement in Lucid's production guidance, trying to get it to match more accurately with the reservations. That's one of the key metrics that EV investors are looking for. Talking about ramping up production for 2023, but not all analysts are as optimistic. We had several analysts at the end of last year, including Lucid, along with Fisker and Rivian, as companies that are expected to continue to remain unprofitable through the rest of the year, burn cash, and maybe look to consolidate or go bankrupt. Don't know, not calling that on Lucid, but I would be very careful getting too bullish on these EV names right now.
And Mark, the strange thing about this one, then I know you've got a segment that you'd like to hit, but I will say this about Lucid as well. Why on God's earth do they want to go to the highest competitive area in the world and expand into China? For that, I just don't really understand what the thought process is there. We already know the struggles. You talked about $47 all the way down here to $7 or even a little bit less. It doesn't make much sense by the management, in my opinion, but maybe they've got some sort of an idea that none of us have thought of just yet, but it doesn't make sense to me.
I can't disagree with you. And the only thing I'll say in their defense is they were taken to the woodshed with all the rest of the EV names last year. Some may be more deserving than others, but man, oh man.
Yeah. All right, Mark, I know you've got a little something you want to throw out to us. So what do you got?
Well, we do so. Today's Rebel's Edge, or Venture Minute, is brought to you by Edge Data Solutions. This is a company that we've been involved with for some time now with Monte Advisory Partners. It's a company that's controlled by John and myself. These guys are involved in creating and deploying liquid immersion cooling solutions for data centers. So what the heck am I talking about? Electronics data centers, which are growing exponentially against the backdrop of the explosion in data as we create data from our smartphones, our cars, our refrigerators, our coffee pots, the internet of everything, of course. All that data needs to be stored, transmitted, etc. Data centers, the biggest cost of running them is cooling. They spend a ton of money on electricity, air conditioning, basically, to cool these servers that run all of this data processing. These guys have come up with a dielectric fluid, I believe it's called, that actually takes the server, the electronic unit, it's dropped into this fluid, it's cooled, slashing the costs of running these things by as much as 40 or more percent. We're very excited about the space as different companies in different municipalities like California and New Jersey and others adopt a green mandate where they want a certain significant percentage of their grid, to be green by 2040 or 2050. Solutions like this are going to be more in demand. So today's Venture Minute brought to you by Edge Data Solutions.
I love it, Mark. It's awesome. You and John are the most creative two guys I think I know, and you're always up to something. And it's always fun to hear what you have to say. I love it. We're going to jump back into sports now, Mark. We've got two of them that we're going to be talking about. So the first one is this. The SEC dominance, and everybody talks about this all the time in college football, right? Wow, the SEC. Let me ask you something. Outside of Alabama and Georgia, I don't know that I do see the dominance that everybody's talking about. Now, those two have been absolutely amazing. They've done an incredible job. Matter of fact, back-to-back national championships for the Georgia football team. Congratulations to the big dogs. Whoop, whoop. But I got to tell you, the Dogs barely deserved to, well, they didn't even really deserve to be there. I mean, that missed field goal against Ohio State, where Ohio State put up 550 yards on Georgia's vaunted defense. I don't know, Mark. I don't know that I believe in this whole thing about the SEC. I will say this. Georgia, unbelievable. And they just continue to do it. They sent 12 guys to the NFL. They might be better this year than they were last year. They're probably going to send a few more to the NFL, but the guys behind them might be better again. So that's just how good Georgia is. And I would put Alabama basically right in that same category. unbelievable. But I will say this. I think that there are a lot of teams out there that individually are incredible. And I'll go back to the Patriots. How about that? So was that the entire AFC? Like we're talking about the SEC? Was that the whole AFC, or was it the Patriots and how good they were with Tom Brady, right? I think that was really the story, that one team. Well, in this case, I would say Georgia is unbelievable. Alabama is phenomenal. But the rest of the SEC, I don't know that they're any different than what I see from the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and some of these other conferences. I just think that it was an amazing game. They took TCU apart. It was ugly to watch. It was uncomfortable because you feel bad for the players at TCU, but an incredible game nonetheless, an incredible season for Georgia. Going undefeated and having a quarterback that's had, I think, one loss in 2 years or 2.5 years. Pretty amazing, Mark.
No doubt. And I tend to agree with you that there are one, or maybe in the case of the SEC, two teams that make it must-see TV. But beyond that, I can't disagree.
Yeah. Now we're going to go to the wild card games. Now we're going to do whatever you want to hit, you can hit. If it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I mean, we got the whole thing in front of us, this is exciting. I love this part of the NFL. It's absolutely awesome. But here's the one that I like the very most. And we can always, we don't even have to argue about it. I will just say this. Jacksonville getting that team from where they were a year ago to where they are right now. Doug Peterson did an amazing job. He had a lot of the pieces. I think the previous coach, I won't even say his name, absolutely screwed up everything that he did the entire time he was there. He embarrassed the team, the franchise, everything, but he's long gone. Now, you get a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you got ETN, you've got all these great players that team had even last year, but one more year, a little bit more experience. They had to go through some difficulties. Mark, they've won 6 of the last 7 games. And oh, by the way, along the way there, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Ravens, they went to Kansas City at Arrowhead and gave them a game. They lost 27-17, but it was a heck of a game. This is a team that I think could be a sleeper maybe as they get into these playoffs. They got to get by the Chargers, though. Herbert can throw the ball as good as any quarterback in football. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a really, really interesting game, but it's here in Jacksonville, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Chargers, I think, are the favorite to win that game on Saturday, but I have been watching a lot of the Jacksonville games this year, and that is definitely going to be an interesting one. But there's so much to choose from with this wild card lineup. I mean, Dolphins, Bills, that with everything that's happened to the incredible Buffalo Bills in the past week or so, you got to think that there's going to be a lot of people watching that game, the Bills, the favorite to win against the Dolphins when they go head-to-head with them on Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Got to maybe check in at 4:30 and watch my home team, the New York Giants, as they take on the Vikings. Minnesota, the favorite to win in that game. Who knows? Although if you watch the Giants on Sunday, oh, my God, between that, and I think I told you I had the Dallas game split screen at the local pub there on either side of the bar, and both were equally painful to watch. As in my family, we have both Giants fans and Cowboys fans. But I'm going to be looking to see on Monday, Pete, if the Cowboys can redeem themselves when they face off against the Buccaneers at 8:15.
And that's right here in Tampa. I'm excited for it. I got to tell you, the Buccaneers, they have a losing record, but because they won their division, they get to be a home team. So we'll see how well they can play. You know, they're not as bad as that 8-9 record reflects, but nonetheless, they got 9 losses. So it's going to be interesting, and we'll see if Tom Brady's got a little bit of magic left in him at this age at 45 or whatever. So we'll see.
You can't count them out, Pete. I mean, and the Bucs showed so much promise at the beginning of the season. A lot's happened during the season of football, as happens every season. So that's definitely one also to watch. Hard to choose. I might be doing that multiple screen thing again in the next Friday to Monday. Or Sunday,
that's the way to do it anyway. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It's awesome. Well, I might be seeing you tomorrow. Hell, I might be seeing you the rest of the week with that clown out there, and he's fooling around. He's going to be on the slopes doing this and that. We just got to make sure that we find out if he's healthy and all. And we'll find out if he's getting through things all the way that we want. But anyway, Mark, great to have you on, and maybe we'll have you on the rest of the week or some other day this week, and we look forward to it if we do.
Anytime, you know that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.